Hi and welcome. My name is Christian and this is Quarantine Games. Instead of me doing a hero analysis in the beginning of each of my Marvel Champions videos, I thought we should do a hero review instead of each hero. Let's get to it. This is Thor, the mightiest Avenger. Even though when you look at his cards he doesn't seem that mighty, he only seems like a really strong brute. You have two big problems that you have to overcome. The first is he has an incredibly bad hand size at first, but he has a signature support that helps with that. So you need to get that out early to have a good game. Otherwise you'll find yourself frustrated, annoyed, and a little bit angry at times. His other problem is with thwarting. He only has a value of 1 on his hero card, which is terrible. And he doesn't have a lot of cards to help him with that. Only one that is a bit situational. He seems like a big dum-dum who thinks that all his problems will be solved if he hits hard enough. Which is kinda true with Thor, because he can hit like a truck against minions and also the villain, because Thor is more like a minion control kinda character. He also has a lot of hit points, which can be kind of a trap because you're thinking, oh, I have this much, then I can take this big hit, then the hit gets too big, and then you're almost dead, and then you have to switch to alter ego and heal a lot. He doesn't have any cards to help him with his hit points except for his helmet. When you also build Thor, you not only do you have to consider his bad thwarting, you also have to consider a specific type of resource, which is the energy resource. There's only one card that needs that type of resource, but that card is amazing, so you have to build towards it. Before we get into the cards, I think it's worth noting that this character is extremely hard in solo mode because of his problems. But I can guarantee you that he is a lot of fun. So, without further ado, let's just get into the cards. First off, let's look at his identity card, because we can't build around Thor without looking at the card that's always present. In Odin's Son, he has a recovery of 4, he has 14 hit points and a hand size of 5, which is pretty bad. Normally they have a hand size of 6, but Thor only 5, makes it a little bit more difficult. But he has an action on his alter ego side, Worthy, where you search your deck and discount power for the Mjolnir upgrade and add it to your hand. This essentially means that if you have a card that can return Mjolnir from, for example, your play area to your hand, you can use Mjolnir as a resource, flip to alter ego side, or if you are in alter ego, you can add Mjolnir to your hand again and use it for a resource. This effectively makes Mjolnir a 2 resource card. So Mjolnir can also be what Mjolnir says, and it can also be a 1 or 2 resource card. Now we have Thor. He has a thwart value of 1, which is terrible, an attack value of 2, which is average I think, and a defense value of 2, which is also kind of average. Now he only has a hand size of 4. That is extremely punishing. But he has an ability on his hero card that can help with that. It's the Have Thee. It's a response. After you engage a minion, you draw 2 cards. This is limited to once per phase, and there are only 2 phases in the Marvel Champions game. It's the player phase and the villain phase, which means that if you get a minion from an encounter card in the villain phase, you can draw 2 cards, and then if you have cards that engages enemy minions in the player phase, you can draw 2 more cards. We love card draw, but this is a situational card draw that is not quite as good as regular card draw. But again, it makes up for it in the number of cards you draw. I think this is a cool ability, but it's also hard to get around, because if you can't kill the minion that you engage, maybe you shouldn't have engaged that minion. Let's look at some cards that helps him with his hand size and also plays into his ability Have a V. First we have the event card Defender of the Nine Realms. It's worth noting that not only does this card help with the Have a V response on Thor, it also helps with his biggest hurdle to overcome, his thwarting. It costs 0. It's a hero action. You discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until you discard a minion. You put that minion into play, engage with you. Then you can remove 3 threat from a scheme. The card has an arrow, which is essentially a den effect if you have a background in Destiny like I have. That means that if you can't discard a minion when you discard cards from the top of the encounter deck, you don't get to remove the threat, and even worse, because when you discard cards from the encounter deck and you get to the last card, if there's not a minion, you don't shuffle the encounter deck and keep discarding from it. You're just giving the villain an acceleration token on his main scheme. So remember how many minions there are in the villain's encounter deck and count how many are left and how many are in the discard pile at all times. Because when you play this card and there's no minions, you will make a fool of yourself. I've done this maybe 2 or 3 times before I got used to it. The next card that helps him with his hand size is his signature support, Eska. It costs 3. It just gets you +1 hand size. It doesn't matter if you're a hero or in alter ego mode, you just get +1 hand size. This is just an amazing card. I wish some of the other heroes would have a card like this as well, but it's more thematic for Thor, and otherwise the other heroes will be way too powerful compared to Thor. Get this card on the table as soon as you can. Otherwise you will have a terrible game. To further help Thor with his hand size, he also has an upgrade that grants him resources. It is God of Thunder. It costs 2, which is pretty standard. It's unfortunate that it's only a hero resource, but we'll take it anyway, because it's just damn good. It's a hero resource where you exhaust God of Thunder to generate an energy resource, which is great for another card, but for all the other cards, Thor doesn't really care about which type of resource it is. This is just something to benefit another card he has. Now let's look at Mjolnir, because you cannot have Thor without a giant hammer in his hand. Mjolnir costs 1 and it's restricted. You can only have 2 restricted cards per player. So far it doesn't really mean anything until a hero can have 3 restricted cards in his deck. It's only Thor and Captain America that can have 2. Mjolnir also grants you the aerial trait and +1 attack, which is great for 1 cost. Even though he doesn't use the aerial trait a whole lot of times, I think it's only 1 card. And there's also some cards in one of the aspects, especially the aspect that comes with Thor, which is aggression. There's 1 card that benefits from the aerial trait. But this is a nice upgrade. Getting +1 attack for a 1 cost, that's great. And remember, Mjolnir can also be used as a resource because of the worthy action. You have 1 last card that can help you with your hand size. It is for Eska. It is an event, it costs 1, and it's an alter ego action, where you search your deck and discard pile for a card with the Asgard trait and add that card to your hand. In the beginning of the game, you will always search for your signature support, Asgard. Later in the game it will be the God of Thunder until you get both of those, and then it will be Thor's helmet, Mjolnir, maybe Lady Sif, or if you're playing aggression, Hall of Heroes. His last upgrade is his helmet, because Thor always wears a helmet for some reason, except in the movies. It costs 2, it just gets you 5 hit points. Not a lot to say about this one. Health is great, and for only 2 resources to get 5 hit points, that's amazing. Now let's get on to his signature ally, Lady Sif. She is possibly the best ally in the game. I think it's Winter Soldier because he's basically free, and there's also an argument to be made for Black Cat that if you get her out early you get a lot of damage for your 2 resources. But Lady Sif has something unique about her that can be extremely powerful. She costs 4, she also has an attack and thwart value of 2, and she has 3 health. She has a response when after Lady Sif enters play, ready Thor or Odin's son. This essentially gives you either 2 recovery or 2 attacks, or maybe a thwart and attack, or a thwart attack and a recovery. She is quite expensive though, especially when you think about Thor's hand size, which is only a 5 and 4. But if you already have Asgard down, it's a little easier to pay for Lady Sif, especially if you have the God of Thunders as well. Now, this is the card you have to build for, Lightning Strike. The cost 1 is a hero action where you spend a number of energy resources when you deal that much damage to the villain and each minion engaged with you. The attack ignores tough status card if you have the aerial trait. This card can just give you so much bang for your buck. Let's just say that you're engaged with 4 minions and there's also the villain. Remember, this is not an attack either, so guards cannot block this attack, this damage. You have 4 minions engaged with you, there's the villain, that's 5 things that gets damaged from this card. So you spend, let's say, 7 resources, plus the resource you spend on the card, to deal 7 damage to each enemy. With a little math, we can calculate how much damage we get per spent resource. It's pretty simple, just take the 35 total damage we just dealt and divide it by the number of resources spent, which is 8. Spoiler alert, is a little bit more than 4. We get 4 damage per resource spent. That's incredible value. That's just as much as the supersonic punch from Iron Man. This card is probably the most busted card in this game, and I use it for 11-13 damage sometimes. It's just great, especially with his ability and the get over here from the aggression aspect to just take all the minions and engage them with you and then just kill everything. He has one more attack card in his arsenal, even though the other wasn't attack card. It is Hammer Throw. It costs 3. It's a hero action. You exhaust Mjolnir, deal 8 damage to an enemy, and then return Mjolnir to your hand, and this attack gains overkill. This is also a brilliant way to get around the guard keyword, especially when you're playing against Claw and Doomsday Chair and having those annoying armored guards with toughness and the biomechanical upgrade. I can't remember what it's called. That means you have to kill him twice. Then you can just get a weapons runner, use this card and still damage Claw. This is just overkill is always amazing. Some of you might be thinking, why should I exhaust Mjolnir first and then return it to my hand? It's because in the hero expansion pack for Thor, there was a little card called Mean Swing, where you exhaust a weapon upgrade you have to enhance your basic attack with +3. That just means that you can use Mean Swing and then use Hammer Throw unless you have another weapon on you. That's the only reason. As you can see on his resource distribution among his own cards, there's a lot of energy resources. He also have a fairly expensive suit of cards, which is a problem, unless you get the Asgard and always trigger Havity response. As always, I have a deck that you can try out. I think Thor can only be paired with Justice when you're playing solo, because all the other aspect doesn't really deal with threat as much as Justice does. And if Thor has one problem, it is definitely threat removal. Normally I wouldn't put Heroic Intuition in the deck because of his terrible thwart value, but because Thor has a big problem with thwarting, he really needs that extra, so he always has an option to remove 2 threat, and also it's an energy resource, so it's not that bad. And of course you have to have the 4 Justice and the Under Surveillance, just to give you some breathing room. Also Followed is just a great card, because when you're playing Thor and you're having all these amazing attack cards, you're thinking, why should I remove threat from the side schemes? You can just attach Follow to it and then deal damage while you're removing threat. And this is also the only deck you will see me using those cards, which I call Circle Jerk cards, which is the upgrades that's enhanced reflexes, enhanced physique, and enhanced awareness. Because I think they're pretty bad, but when you have a card like Lightning Strike, when you need that energy resource, they are extremely valuable. And they also help him with his terrible hand size. To give Thor a rating is very difficult because he has a lot of high attack cards, and he's extremely fun. For me at least, he has surpassed Miss Marvel in the fun department. That's because I like it when it's a little bit difficult, which Thor is, especially in solo. But to give him a rating, I will probably rate him B-, because he's a little bit hard to get going and he has a lot of problems with the threat removal. And when you use your card to remove threat, it's not even certain that you're going to remove that threat. And also you're getting a lot of minions, so if you're already planning to go in alter ego mode, don't use Defender of the Nine Realms, because the minion will also scheme, and normally they have a scheme value of 1 or 2, so the 3 threat you just removed, you technically only removed 1 or maybe 2. But as I said with Miss Marvel, that she has 2 ratings, Thor has 2 ratings as well. He is also rated F, but it's a F+ for a lot of fun. But that's it for me, and that was Thor. I'm Christian from Quarantine Games. Until next time, I will be playing a lot of Thor teamed up with Miss Marvel. Take care.